Hey there. So I was watching an infograph commercial, whatever the fuck it's called, and doing some of my own thinking. And people are always perplexed, right? Like, why people could be being abducted. I don't know if that's the right way to put it. I got a headache, and the sentence sounds off to me. Why people could be being abducted? It's just, I don't know. And so it got me thinking. I was like, well, why would aliens be, you know, abducting these random farmers or like people who just are almost seem very random, right? Like why aren't they abducting people who are celebrities, or why aren't they abducting people of influence to, um, you know, because technically, right, their genetics would be the same as someone who's living on a farm. And then, of course, there's a whole idea of that they're just doing it to, be off the radar, to be um, as plausibly as plausibly to deny as possible. Well, I have a different theory. I think maybe aliens are abducting people based off of genetic disposition. So I can have my genes, right, completely sequenced. And the only genes that they really check are the known markers, right? So markers that will tell people that they can compare with other people and say, well, okay, well, compared to the average person, this genetic marker is off. Well, as some of you more savvy people will know, we have a lot of junk DNA as well, though. We have a lot of code that we have not yet figured out what it's for. It seems to do absolutely nothing, right? It's just inert, inactive DNA that has been passed down through evolution, things that we don't need. Like there's genes that we have discovered that actually give us double eyelids because supposedly we actually used to be aquatic. So the little things on the side of your eyes, those little beanie things, are actually the remains of those double eyelids that could close off, so we could be um, adaptive to underwater. You know, and so I'm like, well, what would happen if there are people who are in the next step of human evolution, but the genes, right, are just starting to appear, and and it's long before they're actually activated, right? Um, so I'm thinking that there could be genes that are bridging the genetic gap between us and extraterrestrials that could be visiting us, or they could even be evolutionary genes, things that will make us a lot tougher, things that could expand our consciousness and our intellect. Because um, there's a whole lot of ideas that maybe the stories of telepaths and things like that aren't all bullshit. Maybe there's things about potential energy and physics we don't know of. Like technically, since energy can't be created, the energy that I'm using to lift this around is all energy that's being transformed into mechanical energy, right, to fight gravity. There's a physical substance, but all the energy comes from this object, comes from my hand. So if our brain evolves enough, who knows what our brain capacity could do. So I'm always suspicious that maybe these people that are being massively abductive have different genes than everyone else, but they're inert, they're not active yet. Or maybe they are, and maybe what part of the abduction process is turning them off or observing the way that they change the biology. Because, if they had gene monitoring editing technology, it would be a lot more advanced than us. And so, like I said, we know what genes are, but we don't know how to directly look for what we want, right? We can only compare what we already know. So I can say, okay, well, Kaola has TGA, right, in this line, and this guy, Michael, has TTA, which is different than Kaola's. So what's the difference in this particular strand? What can we kind of identify it does by doing case studies and observations? Well, with all this unknown regions of DNA that's in the human body, I think that aliens literally um, abduct us for gene potential. Who knows? Like I said, it could be super strength. It could be just the next form of body mutations for evolution, things that could be adapted so they could survive on our planet. I mean, there's a lot of things because it just doesn't make any sense. If I'm in a room with case one who claims to be abducted, and I'm in the same room with them, but I'm not abducted, right? And there would be an equal probable chance of neither of us being believed or of the aliens getting caught. For example, if you believe that that's happening, then there must be a very specific reason why case one is being abducted and case two isn't. And that's the only thing that I can really logically grasp is there has to be something with the individual, right, that's making them a preferable target. And my theory is this genes. There is some sort of inert or inactive gene sequence that makes them more of a susceptible target for a UFO abduction. And if you look at the backgrounds of a lot of people that claim to be abducted, there are some people that, for example, there was a woman who was abducted by aliens, and she's one of the reasons she kept going back to the doctor. She was sure there's something different about her, and she was found out to be one of the people that had four cones, for example. Now that's a very obvious gene mutation. We can spot that. I don't think aliens are needed to spot that, but that could have been the scratch of the surface of what could be. Yeah, see, that's what I've always thought. But when you hear of mass abduction stories, right? Isn't it usually like, for example, a very particular area, right, where there's been known for a lot of abductions? Like there are places in Arizona, right, that have a very high concentration of UFO sightings. So I believe cases like that could be preventative measures to stop people from remembering certain things. Because the reason that I'm so like convinced, right, that a lot of these individuals, right, the people that have like they have that Netflix. Well, I was just saying the TTA thing as an example. That the only way human beings can observe gene mutation, right, is by comparing genes with other people, right? So if they look at my DNA and they look at your DNA, all they can tell, right, is what's different in your and my DNA. I believe that aliens would have much more sophisticated technology, and that maybe the reasons are is that in this junk DNA, because remember, human beings have DNA that's found in potatoes. We have genes that are found in electric eels, right? And so, why aren't we starchy, right? Why aren't we part plant? Why don't we produce electricity out of our fat like electric eels do? Well, those genes are inert, they're not active, and they're just turned off. So my theory is like, let's pretend maybe you have a genetic disposition that makes your skin more dense than mine, or you have that bone density thing. There's a genetic disposition, right? Yeah, right. You got nerfed, man. Fucking patch. And yeah, so that's my theory is maybe you have a gene, right, that is actually active but maybe inert, right? Because you can have that MTHFR gene, right, which is the warrior gene, and there's people that get it from their mothers, right, but it's never active, but it's there, it exists. And you can still pass it down to your children or it will just stay with you. Well, we're just skimming the surface of what we understand of biology. So, what if aliens, right, they're part of their ability to stay on the planet had to completely do with their ability to adapt to our environment? So, what if it's like blood donation, right? So, no matter how advanced of a civilization you are, right, you have to have a compatible gene sequence, compatible blood type. So what if, I mean, this could be another thing, obviously it's all theory, but what if you have a special type of cell receptor, a gene in you that allows you to adapt to anything, right? Any other gene sequence. So now you're compatible to accept alien DNA. So if they were to breed with you, right, and make an offspring, your particular strand of DNA just so happens to have that one inert function that other people don't that allows it to bind, right? Yeah, I get really. Yeah, but like I said, it's gene compatibility, not necessarily how well your genes fare. Or because remember, there's a lot of people that think human beings are alien descendant because we actually are poorly um, equipped for Earth. If you look at a human's genetics, right, our lungs, right, are actually more sufficient in higher oxygen environments. Co-location. Well, okay. So have you ever noticed that? Actually, there's an interesting thing that I could probably reference you to. Let me go on my computer and find this. Humans are not adapted to Earth. Um, there is a very, very interesting genetics thing that we did that actually kind of like the gist of it says that human beings are not meant to live on Earth, and they don't know why. So, for example, our upright posture and the way and our bone density is actually really poor for Earth gravity. That's why most of people develop back problems. Even people that don't have physical labor, by the time you're 50 or 60, most people have back problems. And so, why would we evolve to be a very particular type of genome that doesn't fit at all with how cold and hot it gets on Earth, for how low the oxygen content is, for how small our lungs are? Like if you look at a water buffalo or a bird or a cat, right? Are their lung capacities and their lungs are more efficient than a human because they're adapted to breathe at 18% oxygenation. Well, not exactly the way we evolved the country and nationals, right? We created ways to avoid nature instead of adapting to it. That's why we're smart. Well, if evolution takes millions of years, though, that's the thing. We've only been smart for 50,000 years. So I get what your point is, like the adaptation part. But remember, adaptation, mutation, and evolution are three completely different lines in the same tree. Without adaptation takes a few generations, mutation takes several generations, and evolution takes thousands upon thousands of generations, usually between 10 and 50 million years. So we have not had the chance to really evolve since our last 1 million evolution, where we became hairless, right? And we started standing upright. And the idea is, though, is where did that come from? That's the reason scientists are looking for the missing link. We've been looking for it since we've had the tools to look for it, and we've never found a true missing link. We literally have found apes that are semi-bipedal but still use both their arms to walk on a usual is just small versions of macroevolution. Yeah, but microevolution usually has to do with spontaneousness. So, for example, if a volcano erupted, right, and we lost 30% of our daylight and our UV radiation, microevolution would have to happen rapidly for species survival, or they would all die. There's no indication that 50,000 years ago a huge global event happened that forced us to go through a microevolution that would make up for why our brains got so big so quick and why our body function went down so quick. Because even if we're living in igloos, right, that would make sense for the hair loss, but it wouldn't make sense of why our lungs are so small. If anything, right, most of the European nations adapted in higher climate. Checkmate, atheist. Yeah, but even if there was a flood, right? Okay, that would make sense why we could have had aquatic genes, like I said, the double eyelids that we've discovered in science. But it wouldn't make sense for why we're so poorly adapted for sea level air, right? Why is it that the human body is meant for about 22 to 26% oxygen, right? That would be our ideal climate. That's the same climate as the dinosaurs. And the dinosaurs, the birds, have evolved to adapt to 18%. We haven't. And there's a lot of scientific evidence to show that we're very evolutionary deficient for some reason. And, we've only been smart 50,000 years. So there's no reason that a million years ago or 15 million years ago, when we were related to the great red apes, that those monkeys wouldn't have become adapted for the new changing environment while they were changing into us. And that's just some of the problems that has to do with why are we so poorly equipped for Earth. But that's just a theory, exactly. And so, yeah, exactly. And so that's what I'm saying. That's why it's one of the theories that we could be ancestors of aliens, or at least aliens that crossbreeded with primitive humans. It's actually very similar to Promethean theory, which is what they base the alien movies off of. Is that there's a civilization that went around seeding the universe, and they could have done it for expansion purposes. They could have done it for experimentation, whatever it is. And I'm not really sure. Honestly, I wasn't around 50,000 years ago. I don't know whether or not we were injected with alien DNA, whether or not we came out of the forest of Eden, right? it is kind of hard to tell exactly, right? What happened? We don't know. We weren't alive back then. All we can do is speculate. And like I said, people who are claiming to be abducted by aliens, we have to assume one thing: whether they're lying or whether they're telling the truth. And if they're telling the truth, we have to be able to differentiate the reasons on why they would be being abducted. Because look, there's mass abductions, but yeah, I said there's only two reasons. But the problem is mass abductions usually have to do with an area that has high sightings, right? Frequency. If you look at the mass abduction that happened in Mexico, it happened right around that volcano that there's always UFO sightings. So if anything, they could have seen something they weren't supposed to happen. Why do you think I was abducted? Well, like I said, if so there's two there are well, there's a couple more, but there's two main things that people that are abducted um say. One are the people who are frequently abducted, and then there's people who are only abducted once, right? There's really only once or more than once. Um, they wanted my chocolate. Were you abducted once or multiple times? I mean, I'm gonna be here and say I will believe the story, and then I'll give you my best logical input. Once, okay. Did you see multiple UFO sightings before and after, or did you see no of UFO sightings and then suddenly you had a memory of a abduction? So, for example, a couple of weeks leading up, you started seeing a lot of UFO sightings, lights in the skies, strange noises, electromagnetic disturbances in your house. I've seen other UFO related stuff, but I've only been abducted once. I mean, I'm saying, so did the frequency of the UFO sightings, right, get high frequency right before you were abducted? Or was it just average and then you just remembered being abducted at a later date? Because it matters. It really matters. Uh, I'm pretty sure you're typing. Look at you waiting for my response while YouTube is blocking my messages because I'm sending. Well, I like to be as polite as possible. Um. Okay. Well, let me answer both questions then. If you're having a hard time sending the message, so there are, I believe. Okay, so what I think you saw then, so this is the reason I think you're abducted. Now, remember, I'm just speculating. Um, believe it or not, I actually used to work for the Air Force a little bit, Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico, and I used to help them do actual aerospace engineering, and like I used to have a platform where I used to help invent different propulsion systems. I was actually quite young, just got out of high school too, and so I'm aware of the UFO phenomenon, even from a military standpoint. And so this is my personal belief, though. I believe that you saw something you weren't supposed to, because, for example, I had this explained to me by somebody, right, a friend of mine, and it actually makes perfect sense. So this is not my theory. This is a friend of mine. Have you ever had it, right, where you're in your kitchen and you suddenly lose all memory of the past like 20 seconds, and you're standing there and you're like, what the fuck happened? Why don't I remember anything? What was I doing? Right? He thinks that you see something supernatural and your memory gets wiped, because human memories, right, can be very easily altered with light. Scientists have actually removed memories from mice using pulsations of different light that interrupts the synapses in our brain and stops them from binding chemicals for memory. So I actually think that sometimes aliens are doing something and you just so happen to be in the vicinity of it and you got a direct observation of it. And so they go, wait a minute, we can't have no witnesses because there's a reason they're being covert. If they really wanted to be known, like everyone says, they would go on the White House lawn and they'd say, here we are. So if they're here, they don't want us knowing, and there's a reason for it. So I think that you just so happen on what you see. Fridges are actually save points. So whoever's controlling this and advertising goes to yeah, who knows, right? Hey, we could be. There are people that think we're living in a simulated universe as well. But yeah. So maybe you saw something you weren't supposed to, and so they said let's hit the reset button on this guy for a couple hours, and so they might have abducted you. Now, like I said, I'm assuming you're telling the truth and not bullshitting or trolling. Who knows? You could be just saying this. Um, I like I said, I try to base my things on the what if possibility. I have to base this entire live stream on the possibility that these people aren't lying because statistically, right? Even if out of 1 million abduction proposals, right, for the past 50 years, right? Even if one of them is true, that still changes everything that we fundamentally know. One person out of those million was actually abducted by an alien. So, but his memory of that time is gone as well. See, this is what I'm saying. So it makes perfect sense for me that you guys saw something you weren't supposed to, and they just wiped your memory. I don't think there was any genetic disposition in you that made them want to abduct you for clinical reasons. Because, like I said, the people that I believe that are being actual targets for abduction are the people that frequently see UFOs all the time. Like, remember, they made a documentary about that guy on Netflix. He's been seeing UFOs, and he's got things on video, on footage. He's got weird electromagnetic readings that would appear outside of his house when he'd see. Because you remember, he got paranoid. Oh, and then he left. No, whatever. I'm still recording. But so yeah, now that that guy's gone, I'll get back to the main point, I guess. Like I said, I think there are a couple different cases for abduction. I think you see something you're not supposed to. I think there's a genetic disposition where maybe they're interested in gene editing themselves, or they're looking at bridging the gap between our evolutions. But again, I think there has to be special genes present in an individual that makes them a target. I really think it has to do with DNA. And I think as far as that goes, we'll see, right? One day we're either going to come in contact with aliens and it's going to be War of the Worlds, or it's going to be Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, or it's going to be, oh, what the hell? Oh, okay, you're back. I was just, that or they want the chocolate. Where are you getting this chocolate milk thing from? Are you talking about that thing from Imaginary, the School for Imaginary, Foster Home for Imaginary Friends, right? I want chocolate milk. I saw that memo on Facebook like yesterday, so I'm pretty sure that's what you're doing. I think everybody likes chocolate milk, man. Pretty sure everybody does. Proof. Well, yeah, it's actually funny. No joke. I was 100% vegan for like 2 years, and now I'm vegetarian, living here in Japan with my wife. Well, at the moment, wife. And I started drinking milk again, man. It's terrible. I felt kind of bad, but I just can't help myself. Milk added in coffee and shit, man. It's just got a texture that I can't get from anything else. And like, have you ever noticed if you have milk with chocolate, it actually diffuses and mixes differently than anything else? Proven fact. You talking about me or you talking about yourself? You keep getting chat blocked, dude. You should just send them in larger chunks. That way it doesn't do that. I know you're trying to respond to me in real time, which I understand. Well, I mean, my boku wa nihongo shibiru. I look 16. No, I don't, dude. I fucking. You know what's funny? I'm more than 10 years older than that. I'll show you my ID if I got it. Nah, I'm not gonna do that on live stream. You look like a child. Well, I mean, fuck you. That means I got great genes, right? Maybe I've been abducted. That's why I feel so goddamn tired recently. I've been sleeping like nonstop, and I still feel like I can't. Oh, you know what's funny? I kid you not. Like, I know you're joking, but that is not the first time I've heard that, and I actually heard it like legitimate one time, from somebody. They were actually convinced I was like reptilian or something. This was like 7 years ago, though. It's pretty funny. I was living in California at the time, and I actually had a friend who was kind of like cautious of me. He thought I wasn't like, like one of everyone else. I don't know how to put it. He wouldn't elaborate what he thought I was, but the guy would just get really uneasy, and he would just be like, "You're one of them. I know it." And I'm like, "One of what, dude? Like, you make me fucking sense." Oh yeah, I love chocolate milk. I love chocolate milk. Confirmed. Yeah, right. Well, like I said, according to theory, we all could be part alien, and it's crazy because it would be hard to deny, right? Because we'd have to confirm or deny that that's happening, and there's so much DNA in the human genome that is inactive and hurt that we don't even know what the fuck it does. It would take another couple decades to even figure it out. So there could be a possibility that we were seeded by aliens a million years ago. I'd be kind of cool, actually, right? Find out that this whole time you were kind of like the Australia of the universe. Well, here's the thing: all of the main amino acids, all the main building blocks, right? The carbon, oxygen, nitrogens, and even things as complex, right, as molecular chains exist in space. Remember, we found entire gas clouds that are made out of alcohol. We found um, pure organic substances on Titan. We found them on Mars. We found things that would already show us that biology, at least the precursors to biology, are very common in space. And so if we're like a giant cooking pot, right, and the right things were crashed down on the planet on a highly uh, reactive volcanic era on the planet's history when we're forming, that heat and pressure could have done things and definitely have formed early protein-based life, which is what we think bacteria is actually common in the universe. But the reason that what's funny? Actually, I'm gonna link this in chat so you guys, anyone who watches this later, and you can look at this. But there is actually a law in place that NASA cannot directly um, go or observe a place that we actually believe that there could be bacteria or any form of life on it. So we actually have to go around where we think the life is because we don't want to influence it or change it or directly um, interact with it. Does your alien Well, I can't let you know all of my secrets, buddy. But no, so seriously, NASA is not allowed to actually go places that we think there's life. We can go, like for example, there's an area on Mars that actually is producing methane. I think you know about this, and we can't send a rover over there because methane is produced by organic substances. And so we think that there could be bacteria colonies under the earth, under the ground in Mars. And we will not send a rover there because if there are bacterial colonies under the surface of Mars, then we could accidentally disturb something. We could disturb the eco balance. We could infect the rover. We could accidentally send something back if we ever had a reconnaissance team go pick up the missing pieces of whatever the fuck when we have a manned mission. There's so many unknowns when it comes to what happens if we were to come in contact with bacterial life that we won't actually do it. So there are a couple places in our solar system that we think there's bacteria. We think there's bacteria in Europa. We think there's bacteria on Titan, and we think there's bacteria on Venus, and we think there's bacteria on Mars. So bacterial life is actually very common in the universe. We think like very common single cellular life. So if that's true, then that means it is very probable that our life started from bacteria, and since we didn't really get too hot or cold, it was a thriving environment for them to survive. I don't know. I think it's relevant. I think there's a high possibility we came from bacteria. Because think about this, man. I think a lot of people that base their arguments off of religion, right, that we were created, don't really understand that space and time is infinite, right? So if we literally live in infinite space, then we can't be the center of space, right? So that means that we could be trillions and trillions of light years away from a form of galactic center. I mean, a universal center, if you really want to call it that. And so, with all this billions of years and all the space between us, right? It just so happens that in this particular place, given enough time, that the everything was just in the right circumstance to create multicellular life. And the thing is when they run computer calculations, right? There's a lot of people that have stated that life propagates very easily in computer simulations. So if you were to make a bunch of fake Earths, right, inside of a computer simulation and then run it on a supercomputer, multicellular life would form at a very astonishingly high rate. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Well, I know. I think you're just being a smart ass and and condensing what I said, but yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing too. That's why I don't believe aliens can't exist because there has to be aliens, right? Because if remember the whole reason that you as a scientist would go to a lab and would make a Jesus, I'm so fucking tired. The reason you go to a lab and make an experiment, right, is to repeat a theory, right? To right. Well, okay. So if you tell me, right, that you one time saw a metal box start floating, right? Technically, if it really happened, you can go to a laboratory and you could repeat it, right, with the right circumstances. Because anything that can happen once can happen again. And that goes with life. If we happened, then most likely life happened before and after us. And where is it? Now, that's another conversation, but I actually think scientists have figured it out. Do you know about the ringularities that scientists discovered late last year? So a singularity, right, is a black hole. Well, they've just found out through computer simulations and mathematical equations that it's possible for a black hole to be super spinning, right? Well, you know that if you take a really large ball, right, and you were to spin it, it would start to spin at a certain velocity, right? Its internal its center velocity would be higher than the external velocity. Well, now if you start to shrink the ball, right, the overall rotation becomes quicker. So what happens if you condense a rotational force into the smallest possible point in space, even smaller than an atom? The rotation would become so high that you actually break the laws of energy conservation. So these ringularities that scientists have discovered, because they actually think we found one, but we're not completely sure yet. We have to do more research. But they know that they found them mathematically. It's the only thing in the world that would not create energy, right? But it would have no conservation of energy. So if you shot radiation in a singularity, it would infinitely grow the energy until it was released. So, it's really interesting. They actually think that there's entire civilizations that exist around spinning black holes. So what they do is they make a giant dome, like a mirror, and they shoot radiation into it, and it starts to bounce on every single side. It's kind of actually like a duplication glitch, and it keeps duplicating energy until it becomes so exponential that it has to be released, or it permeates and explodes out like a giant fucking intergalactic bomb. And yeah, so when we run simulations like this, it would be infinite energy essentially. Like as long as this singularity existed, you would get infinite energy. Yeah, exactly right. And so here's the crazy thing, though. So you know that about the Dyson sphere, right? About the giant structures around a sun to harness the sun's energy. Well, those would be really obvious to see, right? If we were to look for a Dyson sphere, it'd be pretty easy to find an alien race, right, that built a giant fucking dome around a star. It would dim the light so much that it would become not really. It'd become very obvious, right, that there's a presence around it because it's dipping by 20, 30% of the total light volume, and we'd be okay. Something's absorbing all this light. What is? And so my my idea, or what I'm pretty sure is what we've discovered, is that aliens are actually very prevalent, like we thought, but they are smarter than us. So what they're doing is they're harnessing the energy of ringularities of black holes, because when we do um, simulations, we did a simulation in a Mexico college, right, with a ringularity, and we made a fake Dyson sphere around a ringularity, a mirror box, and we shot radiation into it in the computer. And the crazy thing is, the energy that was released had the same type of um, observation as a pulsar does. So you know the really really tiny dwarf stars that produce a high amount of gamma X-ray radiation, it would actually just look like that. So if we had a microscope and we were looking at an alien civilization that had domed a black hole, it would literally look like we're just looking at a pulsar. So it would be almost indistinguishable. We wouldn't even know we're looking at an advanced civilization because they would have masked to look like a pulsar. So yeah, there could be thousands of alien civilizations right now that literally live around black holes, and when we go to observe them, it just looks like we're looking at some far distant solar system around a pulsar. Because we don't really know how common ringularities are, but ringularities are quite rare. Only about 2% of all black holes become them. Now that's still very prevalent considering space is infinite, but if it was happening, that would be like a rare resource. So yeah, if aliens existing, they could constantly be on the hunt for ringularities, and then every time one is found, they capture it and they start using it for energy. And when we look at it, it just looks like we're looking at a pulsar. We go, oh, okay, another dying star next. But in fact, we just looked at ET. And there's no way of knowing until we were to actually go somewhere, or we find out more ways of indirectly observing it. Yeah, it's pretty fascinating because like remember Stephen Hawkins had a large talk, and he said that if aliens exist, it would be really hard for us to find it, because even though you cannot get rid of energy emissions, right, you can always emit it the opposite direction. So if we're looking for a heat signature of a really advanced civilization, and they have to produce heat, they have to produce radiation, and that's why we think we could find them. But if they took their afterburners and pointed it away from Earth, it would irradiate towards the Andromeda galaxy, not us. So we'd never be able to observe it because we have to use light. I mean, you just have to use the radiation that's coming at us to indirectly observe it. Well, if they're pointing it all in a funnel, the opposite direction that we can observe, we'd never find it. It'd always be invisible, even though they have to irradiate some sort of energy. So yeah, there's a lot of ways that aliens could very easily detect human observation. And we know how to do it, and we're, as you know, we're type 0. We're not even a type 1 civilization, and even we know how to outsmart ourselves. So if we know how to outsmart ourselves, then an alien with a couple million years, higher technology would definitely know how to outsmart us. So yeah, we're hopeless. The only way we're ever going to find aliens is if they want us to. That, or they somehow had like that one guy that had the one job and he failed, I don't even think that's inaccurate. I think we're less than bacteria. I mean, think about this. A bacteria can kill you, right? If I get a bacteria in a wound, right, it can create a sepsis and kill me. Yeah, possibly. Who knows, man? Well, I think human beings are gonna. I think our I don't know how old you are, but so I'm gonna be 27, and it's already been stated that they think that there's people who are in their 50s that will live to be 150, and they think that there are people in their 30s um, that will actually live to be immortal or close to immortal. So if me and you are in the generation of immortality, so meaning we will have a medical science advancement that will allow us to live almost indefinitely, then we will eventually see aliens. Now, my personal theory on the matter is that we're going to kind of accidentally bump into them because they probably have no interest in transcommunicating with other species. And if they are, they just do it for scientific study, like abduction. They're really only doing it just to study us because they don't really have they don't have like. Tell me, do you want to strike up a conversation with the bacteria on your table? No, there's no reason to. There's nothing you can learn from a conversation with the bacteria on your table. The only thing you can learn is from scooping up some of the bacteria and looking at it under a microscope. So that's abduction right there. They're just literally taking us, the bacteria, and they're observing us in a petri dish in their lab. And they're going, oh, okay, so that's what the DNA is like. This is what their organs do. Okay, put them back. Who's Steve? Oh, yeah, that's funny. You're like, oh, okay, well, you tell Steve I said hi then, right? And so, yeah, I mean, like I said, man, there's so many. There's so many. Hmm. What's a good way, easy way to put it there? There are so many deviating paths to truth that's really hard to narrow down which one is the absolute truth because we can only make a very basic assumptional thinking on this matter, right? What do we assume could be the truth? But we don't have an absolute grasp of what the truth is in this. I think we can get closer to the truth. You know, for who knows, my theories with this, well, they're okay. So by the existence of the observer, i.e., me and you, the human being, where we can make an observation of something. So by that law, right, there are loose truths. Now, there are no absolute truths if you want to get real technical because there is no such thing as black, right? Black is just the way our eyes interpret a lack of photons traveling to our eyes from a particular substance because the pigment absorbs most of the light. But that observation is truth to the observer, right? Because I have eyes, and to me, it is black. So technically, it's no longer a possibility, but a truth to the observer. So since we are observers, we can make truths because the truths, yeah, but it's still a truth, right? So when you want to talk about possibilities, that could be what could be observed and what could not be observed, right? So there's still the objective. Oh, sorry, I'm fucking up my words now. I need to drink some coffee. Um, there are still things inside of that, right, that can become an observable truth by whoever the observer is. So if you're asking me what this is, right, this is not a possibility. This is an object. That for sure is true. There's something I can touch by the observer. So now there being something behind this computer, once I check, is no longer a possibility. Now, if I put it behind it, right, it neither exists or exists because now the observer cannot verify, right? It's just like isn't it like remember the cat in the box? The cat is neither alive nor dead. The cat is neither alive or dead. I can't remember it's called Schwarzenegger's cat, right? So according to Schwarzenegger's cat, by being the observer, you make an objectable truth. It is therefore a truth, but becomes a possibility once the observer is removed from the situation. So by that definition, there is truth, right? There is observable truth. Now, is it absolute truth or just truth to the observer? Obviously, like you're saying, it's just subjective to the observer. But it's still a truth. It's not a possibility. A possibility only exists when there's no observer to verify, right, what the subjective truth is. So I wouldn't say things are just possibilities. There are truths. There are at least loose terms of truth, simply because we're observers that can view it. Like if you know anything about quantum mechanics, um, actually being an observer changes the way things behave. So atoms and electrons actually behave differently when they're not observed directly by a human being versus when they're observed directly. It's crazy. So we actually change the universe by observing it. Now that's getting off track with this UFO stuff, but it goes in bounds of, we could think we know things, but in fact we don't. Blah blah blah. Like I think the reason that we're being abducted, if there are people who are being abducted frequently, I think it could be from genetics. Well, this is what I think. I think they're like doctor's visits, and the people that get frequently abducted and frequently see the UFOs following them, I think they get abducted into the spaceship, and I think they do protocols where they're like abducting them with a serum to gene edit them or to observe the effects that their DNA make after it's been exposed to a particular substance. And then they let the body go through the procedures of cell mitosis and mitochondrial DNA splitting. And then after a few weeks, when their body's actually absorbed whatever this drug or procedure is, or surgery for all I fucking know, they abduct them and then they compare the results. Okay, what was their body doing before we abducted them, after, and now? And I think it's more of like a clinical trial, like we do with medicine, right? Where we take a bunch of people, we have them take a drug, and then we observe the changes the drug does to us. I think it's something along that bound, but with our DNA. So they're editing with us, they're fucking with our DNA, or they're observing a mutation that we're having that certain people have, and then they're seeing what happens when it's subjugated to different things. For all we know, maybe they are really going to exterminate us. What if they're looking for a super virus, right? What if they're going to drop some fucking thing to kill all the people, but leave all the juicy carbon on the planet, right? We don't know what their real attempt. So the end goal would see how to alter human genes to get chocolate milk. Basically, dude. Like I said, we have the same genes as the potato, so that means we could be gene edited to produce cocoa, like the cocoa bean, right? And then we're mammals, so we produce milk. So there we go. They got to put plant DNA in us to make us produce the chocolate, and then they got to make it to where human beings lactate with a particular gene, and then they combine those two genes, and then the milk that comes out of our teeth will be chocolate milk. Case confirmed. We got it, guys. They're trying to make us produce chocolate milk. Actually, I have a really interesting pop quiz. Do you know what animal actually has the most genes? They have 10,000 more genes than we do. They're actually considered the most genetically complex animal. You can Google search it if you want. I'll give you like 2 minutes to figure it out. Oh, I'll just lay here, mind my own business. Massive. The octopus. The octopus is incredibly complex genetically. They have so many different things that they can do. They can change their shape. They can condense their space. They can change their pigmentations. They have very highly adept motor function control because they have so many limbs. They also have the ability to see electromagnetic fields, they think, just like the cuttlefish can. So they can see you. They can see the electrical field that's produced by your heartbeat. They might even be able to pick up on forms of light that we can't, like they have more cones in their eyes. Like they're pretty fucking complex. Well, they're not special till they get pretty much, dude. Yeah, I agree. Actually, what's funny? I remember one of the first scientific arguments I ever had in my life was actually as a kindergartner, and I had a friend who was convinced, right, that chocolate milk came from chocolate milk cows. And I looked at this guy and I was like, no, there's no such thing as a chocolate milk cow. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, okay, well, you can buy a chocolate bar. He's like, yeah. And I said, well, you can buy milk. Yeah. I said, why don't people, they're probably just mixing the chocolate and the milk together and then you get it. And he's like, what are you talking about? No, there's chocolate milk cows. So I literally had like an argument with this dude when I was like 5 years old about how I believed in it, because I didn't have any proof, but I believed that chocolate milk came from chocolate and milk being mixed together. And It blew my mind though how there was people who are my same age that legitimately believe there had to be a chocolate milk cow. I just didn't fucking understand it. Yeah, I'm sorry to break it to you, man, but we take chocolate powder and then we use the fats in the milk as a binder because see here the lipids in milk are very big, right? Compared to the lipids inside of other animals because cows have multiple stomachs and so they also have a higher disposition for certain like early born deformities. I mean, not deformities, but just whatever. I can't even claim to know. That I'd be talking out of my ass. But they have to have very large fat cells inside the cow's milk, and human beings don't can't actually digest it. That's one of the reasons cow milk is bad for you, and why a lot of people are lactose intolerant. But it's very good in cooking and for mixing other things because fats and salts, right? Salt attracts all liquid. So if you put salt somewhere, water will actually be drawn to it chemically. If you put fats, larger molecules, carbon-based molecules, will be drawn into it. That's why we have fat, is to store extra energy because things are naturally drawn to fat. Well, if you put cocoa powder into milk, the, the molecules of the cocoa powder love to bond to the fat particles, the lipids inside of the milk, and so it blends really, really nicely. That's actually why if you try to have a vegan chocolate shake and you use coconut milk instead of cow milk, it just doesn't have that smooth consistency. And that's why I went vegetarian again because I actually really like chocolate milk. It's actually fucking hilarious because you're making these jokes about chocolate milk, and I legitimately I love having chocolate milk inside my coffee. So what I do is I take a cocoa mix, I take hot milk, and I mix the cocoa mix together first, and then I fill up my thing of coffee, and then I pour the mixed in chocolate milk into it because it makes it taste more of like like hot chocolate instead of coffee because I hate the taste of coffee. But yeah, it's pretty funny because I don't like the taste of coffee, but I love the effect, and so I actually mix in chocolate milk into it to make it taste more richer. Well, you got any more questions, man? It's been like, oh man, I gotta. I'll probably live stream in a couple. That's how you form a drug addiction. Yeah, basically, dude. Again, I think I am a little chemically addicted to coffee because like today, and I had an argument with my wife, but last night I went to bed at like 3, and I slept until 5 p.m. today. So I literally only woke up 3 hours ago, and I'm so tired. I actually want to go back to bed. Like I want to sleep. I'm like unbelievably sleepy right now, and I don't understand because I've slept like 14 hours. I shouldn't be sleepy still, but I am, and I got a fucking headache. Like, oh, actually, one second. I'm gonna go grab some food, and maybe that'll wake me up. Right back. Well, it's actually funny. I'm a polyphasic sleeper usually. I actually only sleep about 3 to 5 hours a day. Usually. And I do just fine. I've been doing it for almost a year now. The reason I slept so long today is because of the argument I had. I just was not in the mood to do anything. I was like, all right, fuck this shit. Because my wife left at like 7 something a.m. and it was literally gone all day. And then I woke up because she got home. So I don't even know what the fuck she was doing all day, but I don't really care. But But yeah, yeah, right. Well, I actually do fine. I don't really have too many. I wouldn't say I have any health problems from not sleeping a lot. But yes, I think we will skip sleep one day because there are people that never sleep. And I'll actually tell you the exact name of this. Um, name. I can't remember. There's only it's called hypersomnia or hypersomnia, and hypersomnia affects literally a handful of people. There's less than like 100 people on the whole planet that have it, but there are people who live completely normal lives and they never sleep. Like never. They don't even nap. They there's something chemically different and they never sleep. And they're perfectly fine, crazily. They don't have any heart conditions. They have no problems. And scientists are studying them right now because they want to figure out why they never sleep. And yes, they would probably do it to help people sleep less. Because I think people are always obsessed with time. I mean, I hate the reason I became polyphasic was I hated the idea that if I live to be 60, I've spent more than 20 years asleep, right? Because 8 hours is one third of 24. So I've spent a third of my entire life asleep. Holy shit, dude, that's 20 years wasted doing nothing, passed out in a fucking bed. That sucks. I want to be able to. I want to be constantly doing shit with the one life I get. I don't want to be um paralyzed, hallucinating for 8 hours of the night that I don't even fucking remember. You don't really remember your dreams usually, so like it's a waste, it's a complete waste of time, in my opinion. Oh well, I don't really like it. I used to lucid dream when I was younger, but I could never control it. So yeah, I don't really miss it. I used to get sleep paralysis too until I was like 17. I hated it because I would wake up and I'd still be in the dream, and I would see like weird faces and shit. And there's this one time I thought I saw our dog at the time walking past my bed, and then I looked over with my eyes, and then our dog had like a demon face on it, like a human demon face. I was like, oh fuck. Yeah, some really crazy shit when I had sleep paralysis, and then I've had out of body experiences in lucid dreaming when I was even younger than that. But like I said, unless I could control it, or unless it was something that had like a purpose, I mean, it doesn't really. I'd rather just not sleep. So actually, how about this? Since you're my one and only faithful viewer here, tell me about your abduction story with your friend. Like, what were you? Where were you guys? What happened? Like, I'd actually like to hear this. I got my popcorn ready, man. I'm ready to hear your story. well, just send it in one paragraph. I don't care. I wish I could have you like add into the chat, and then your voice could be on this, but I don't know how to. I don't think I can do that. And if you can't send it, it's fine. We'll just talk about something else. I needed to eat this quick to wake up. I think I was just a little low on blood sugar because I'm starting to feel a little bit more awake now. live stream. Dude, is there a way I can get the link to this fucking live stream? I actually have people that I know would probably pop in, but I don't know how to. I'm like so new to this. Is this it? Oh, here we go. I got it. Copy on my Facebook. Let's talk. In short, we basically walked down this alleyway, saw this bright light above us, and lost a lot of time, which is just weird. But we also had very evidence of the time loss because we were supposed to meet a friend at his house, and by the time we got there, I already assumed we just weren't coming. Yeah, it's fine, man. So what about this? What about the what is your take on the spirited away? You know, like the stories of people being spirited away, where they go vanishing forever. Do you think it's aliens always, or do you think that there are um tears in space time? Because I have a theory. Um, kind of, but it does really happen. If you think about it, there are 16,000 um missing people in the U.S. alone that are never found every year, right? That's a lot of people. And these are people that bodies are never found. These are people that truly just drop off the fucking planet. And so, where do these people go, right? If bodies aren't being found, where are they? Because it's a lot of people to not be finding bodies in the forest, right? And so, I have a theory that there are slips in space time, so kind of like wormholes, and like ley lines, as they would put it in a in a mythology slash like magic kind of pretense. Like there's ley lines in the earth that harbor more energy. I think that there's dips, right, where the boundaries between alternate realities get very very thin, and I think that sometimes environmental factors help those layers rip temporarily. And if you're at the wrong place at the wrong time, you're gonna slip through. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they are going to cool places like an anime. That'd be awesome. I wouldn't mind being spirited away in that situation. But who knows? They could just get sucked into a black hole somewhere and get torn apart into spaghettification and die. We don't really know what happens, right? But that's why I was asking your theory. You don't have a theory? Yeah. I've seen it. Dude, the whole world's seen that movie. That's literally the highest grossing animated film of all time up until this movie that came out a couple of years ago. Um, grow. I can't remember the name of it. I've actually seen this one too. Your Name. Yeah, your Name. Um, yeah, Spirited Away was the highest grossing film until Your Name came out. Yeah, Kimi no Mae wa. Yeah, no Mae wa Onamae is it actually means name. So Kimi, right, is yours. No is possessive, and no, I'm not saying they warped to anime land, dude. Obviously, I don't think that shit. I'm saying like in the idea that they're going to an alternate reality could completely be true. I don't know. You know what's funny? I've always realized that too. That if the facial features are real, right, they'd be absolutely terrifying. But why the hell do human beings find it so attractive, right? Why do we find those exaggerated features attractive in a drawn environment? Like, why do otakus find anime women so pretty they want them on their fucking pillow? But if you were to really see that in real life, you'd be like, oh my god, like how does our brain chemistry work like that? How can it find a very weird, overly exaggerated situation attractive and 1/10, but then find it completely grotesque in another. It just blows my mind. Her eyes and what we find as artistic beauty are very fascinating to me. Yeah, if I could be spirited away somewhere though, I have. What about the people who are into vor? Vor. I gotta Google that, man. I'm not even sure what that is. I mean, you could have just or vor. Dude, you type this in and I actually get any weird gifs about it. Just pregnant bitches? Oh, people who are being swallowed? What? What? Dude, that's crazy. Yeah, I just read that on Google. Damn, dude. I didn't even know about that. That's pretty fucking I have something I didn't know. Oh man, being consumed. Yeah, they had that Japanese guy that remember him and that journalist ate his penis and then he killed himself and the journalist ate him. Um yeah, it was pretty crazy. Japanese guy that was eaten. Um Sagawa Issei. Oh no, he was the guy that ate the other dude. Japanese guy that ate his own. I can't. I don't know the name of the guy though. It's not telling me on these Google things. No, I don't know who that is. Miku. Oh, you talking? How does? Nah, dude. You know weirder shit that I do. I don't even look at this weird. That's dude. I hate to say this, but while I'm looking up ringularities and quantum tunneling and like theories on the observer in physics, I think you're looking up some weird shit, man. I think we spend our free time doing very, very different things. Jesus, dude. But no, I didn't know a guy married an anime character. It's kind of weird, yeah. Yeah. I think I just want to drink my chocolate milk, dude. Well, how the fuck did he even? How I don't understand how. What I don't understand though is how did he even legally get married to someone who's not real? That just doesn't make any sense. Because even people who've married themselves, right? You're still a real person. You're not a concept. I don't know, man. Maybe. I don't even know who Miku is though. I looked her up and I see what she looks like and I see a performance where she's singing or something, but I don't know what anime she's from. She's from the Vocaloid anime. Oh, she's from yeah, Vocaloid. Goodbye, Vocaloid. Okay, I've never seen that animated Vocaloid. Oh, okay. Well, it says that there's a anime called Vocaloid that she's based off of, I guess, but or that they based off of her. For all I know, I'm trying to Google it. Yeah, it says something with a band too here. If I look on her Wikipedia, dude, I don't know. I've never even heard of Miku. I mean, I've seen a YouTube video where she's a hologram projection on a street, and she's singing and dancing. I remember that. That's from a couple of years ago, but I didn't know that her name was Miku, and I didn't know anything past that tense. Because the appearance is definitely familiar. I've definitely seen that character before in that video on YouTube, but that's a while ago. Actually, if I YouTube it now, I bet you I can find it. Miku. Yeah, this one. Yeah, World is Mine live 7 years ago. That's the one I saw. Live HD Hatsune Miku. Yeah, that's the one I saw. So yeah, it's pretty old though, 7 years ago. Yeah, I know. I'm not, oh. But yeah, that's pretty crazy, dude. What about? I don't know, man. What do you think about fucking robots? I mean, we're getting so advanced with robots, sex robots. That they're getting to the point where they're reaching high levels of artificial intelligence. So in 30, 40 years, we're going to have sex robots that'll be about as advanced as a person. So, does that actually mean that they can give real consent, that they can give real love if they have been able to mimic a high degree of our form of intelligence and love? It puts a lot of weird moral things into question. Like, would it be considered cheating, right? Let's pretend you're in an unhappy marriage and there is a robot that you start seeing, right? Since it's not a person, would it really be considered betrayal because they could never give you the same things that a real human being could give, but at the same time, maybe they could be capable of giving you things if you look at them as having authentic feelings past the programming. Like, if you look at my YouTube channel, I'm actually a computer programmer, and I program in C++, C Sharp, and C, and I've just started learning Python. But I started in JavaScript, so I know JavaScript. And like, I make AI protocols right now for a game I'm developing, and my yeah. Well, the Turing test just kind of says that they're self-aware, but self-awareness doesn't make them truly alive, right? Because we have to think of it. Is it cognitive ability that makes us alive, or is it the fact that we have hearts, right? That we have organs that makes us alive? It's like that big thing of with abortion, right? Is what is the boundary between what's living and what's functioning? If a robot, if an AI passes the Turing test and it can prove it's self-aware, right? It's just operating at a human functionality, but that doesn't necessarily give it a soul if you believe in a soul. It doesn't really give it the true meaning of life, right? It just means it's cognitive. It's thinking like we do. And so, like I said, maybe it's still not really alive. Maybe it's still like do moral ethics, right? Does murder apply to something that's self-aware but at the same time is run off of a 9-volt battery? There's a lot of things that come into question with that. So, in my opinion, like if are you saying dogs aren't alive? Yeah, but they have organs. Do you get what I'm saying? What's the boundary with that? With the mental capacity to be alive and the actual physical embodiment of life. A dog is alive, a cat's alive because it sleeps, it eats, it poops, it dies. A robot doesn't need any of those things. Yeah, we can make biological robots, but then at the same time, that's more like genetic engineering with cybernetic enhancement. Is it still technically a robot, or is it more of like some sort of genetic experiment, like a clone, right? Or a pseudo biologic clone? Because technically, right, the cloning is just replicate an organism, right? Well, we can graft my cells onto a completely different structure, and technically, it's still a clone of me. It just looks nothing alike, but by the definition of cloning, it would still be a clone. Actually, that's another debate. I've actually had I was trying to get him to join this chat. My friend Austin, my real life friend, I actually had a discussion with him that technically, by all standards, we are just biological robots. Think about it. Everything that a human being does is so perfectly attuned with repetition that the FBI can find a wanted serial killer because we're so into habit that we never break our habits, and we're so unaware of our habits, that we literally do them subconsciously, right? When you are looking or moving your hands, you're not thinking about doing it. It's been so pre-programmed into your brain. It's like an automatic program, right? So technically, we are like biological robots, and that's why it's so hard to prove that there's a soul or that there's an afterlife. Because when you can take something and you can put it into the idea of a mathematical cage, and you can have these things repeat themselves continuously, and that human beings, the more that we understand about psychology, we can literally start to like predict what people will do before they do it. It actually proves that we're a lot less free will than we think, and we're a lot more attuned to a predisposed programming, so to speak. Like we're the outcome of the way our parents raised us and the way that we adapted in society and what kind of conditions we were in. There's a reason that most drug addicts, right, come from broken families. There's not a whole lot of stable people that came from great families that are drug addicts. So if you want to take that as a case study, then it's technically, right, we are a product of our environment. So therefore, we're kind of like robots. We do what we're programmed to do. But that's what I'm saying. So if you want, but again, if you want to take human beings as being something unique, right, and you want to set us as a standard and say that we're not biological robots and we are alive, then how do you differentiate what would make a robot alive and what would make it not alive, right? Cognitive function just proves it's smart. It doesn't necessarily prove that it's in our definition of life. Dogs and cats are not as smart as us, but we consider them alive, right? Because they share a heart like we do, they have blood like we do, they age like we do, they have so many dispositions of life, they have sex, they to reproduce, right? If a robot passed the Turing test and I asked it to make a baby, right, it couldn't make a baby unless it built one. Now, if it was a biological robot, like you're saying, and I asked to have a baby, right, but it was using my DNA as a gaffle, then it would be my child genetically, not its, because it's copying my DNA because it's a cloned organic life form. So again, there's nothing unique about its particular genetics. But at the same time, like you're saying, we're technically clones of our parents, right? I'm one half my mother and one half my father. I'm a partial clone, right? So yeah, man, there's a lot of things that really go into moral questioning when we think about things like this because we don't really know where to draw the line because this line's never been stepped over yet. Even now, it's just speculation, right? Because we've never had a robot that passes the Turing test. We've never had a robot that's been so indistinguishable from a real human that we cannot tell if it's a human being standing in front of us or if it's a robot. That day has not come yet. So all we can do is have a speculative argument about it. And like I said, I actually think that robots for companionship will become a very integral part in future society because a lot of people put up with people they don't love, people they don't like in marriage and in relationships in modern society simply to cope with the idea of not being alone because human beings do function very poorly alone. Look at what happens to prisoners that go into solitary confinement, right? They go absolutely bonkers after a few months. We do terribly completely isolated. So if we had companion androids that looked exactly like human beings and they were programmed to love us like our lover or father or mother, father, mother, or lover, Jesus, I tongue tie that a little bit, then I think it would actually help people with coping. I think it would make people a lot more sensible in their understanding of others' needs, especially if you program them with like a form of free love or free will. But yet again, if you made robots completely complicit to the orders of human beings and you made them look too much like people, then actually it would diminish the value of other people, right? Because you could literally make a robot and you could have it look like, I don't know, what's your favorite celebrity? What's like a female celebrity that you think is really attractive? Just so I can re-engage you in this conversation. Okay, what's a girl that you really think is pretty on a TV show or in an anime, whatever? I've actually seen a lot of anime, so I might know which one you're talking about. Not a celebrity, but thanks, man. But okay, well, I appreciate your compliment. You're my one faithful viewer. um, okay, so let's pretend you were a girl then, because I'm pretty sure you're a dude. But let's pretend you were a girl and you're like, man, I like Kaola. So I'm gonna make my android look like Kaola because I'm gonna use pictures of him, and I'm gonna bring him to those pictures to a workshop, and I'll have him 3D print this android with the exact same bone structure as Kaola. So now you have a robot that is so advanced that it actually looks like me. Like if you took me and this robot, yeah, right. If you literally took me and this robot and put us side by side, we'd be indistinguishable to the human eye. How about this? And so now this robot is 100% loyal to you. So anything you tell this robot to do, it does without question because it's a robot and it can be programmed to do what you say. But it's as intelligent as me or as a person, so it could do those things with very high efficiency. Now, do you think that your value of my will would get higher or lower when you could have an android that looks like somebody do anything you want? Any fucking thing that you could think of within reason, it would do. And then let's pretend you get a girlfriend, or you get a husband, or you get a boyfriend, whatever the case is, and then you ask them to do something and they tell you no, when you know that you could have an android that would do exactly what they're not willing to do. I think it would lower our value of other people because we would have a more inflated ego from the fact that we have a subservient android subrace that we've created. I wouldn't want to call them their own separate species or race because technically they are because they're functioning at a very high level of intelligence. So even if they're not considered alive, I do think they would be their own subclass of something, right? It'd be considered a species, or they would have some form of a permanent place in Earth's large group of genomes, whether or not it's synthetic or not. So I think it could also be very bad, depending on how people use or misuse advanced androids. Like I said, man, like I'm married, right? And I'm not going to tell what I'm arguing about, but me and my wife are arguing all the time for this last month. And if I had an android that literally just did what I asked, what reason? Yeah, true. Well, that's why people think about the whole Terminator shit, right? But if something's not alive and it doesn't register itself as being alive, I don't think it would have self-preservation yet. So I think that would have to be our boundary when making advanced AI. I think if we could make robots as intelligent as us, we have to clearly put in their learning software and their ability to self-recognize that they are robots and are not organic. So this way they might not view themselves as something that has to be preserved. Now it's fucked up, but like I said, it depends on how we develop AI. The only two ways that we'll ever make human intelligence is we're going to have to do something called the ground up solution or the ground down solution. The ground down solution is what we're trying right now, where we take a robot and we take a program and the software and the AI is being built on what we think we understand about human psychology. So the way that we think we solve problems. So we say, if solution A is not equal to solution C, then run coroutine 17. I don't know. Whatever the routine. So they have these loops, these for loops, and they have coroutines that are connected by ifs and else statements, right? Else statements. So it loops to different logic gates. And an AI becomes more complex the more logic gates it has access to. Then there's the ground up solution, which is where we take a simulated universe or simulated world, and then we feed in what would be called like a bacteria. So a very, very simple AI that literally just says reproduce and grow. So then it starts dividing its program just like an actual bacteria would. And then we start accelerating the time in the simulation. And after a few billion years, this will automatically adapt just like real biology, and it will start to gain forms of intelligence. It will find more efficient ways to reproduce, and it'll find more efficient ways to preserve itself and to replicate and to grow and expand. And eventually, given enough of these simulations, they might make a very sophisticated intelligence, something that would be as intelligent as people or more. Now, the issue with ground up AI is we need a computer simulation that's advanced enough and has a high enough load capacity to be able to simulate billions of artificial lives and then allow them to naturally evolve themselves based off of a root program. And that would take a lot of processing power. And we don't have that kind of processing capability right now. So if we were to try to make a simulated evolution, we couldn't for probably another 50 to 100 years. Now we're getting there. Our computers are getting very advanced. I mean, we have supercomputers that almost have 1 yotta of storage capacity. That's fucking unheard of. That's like all of the world's books put onto one hard drive. We're getting there. We're getting there, but we're not there yet. So when we get there, we will make a super AI from the ground up. If we haven't made one already from the ground, from the up, from the ground down, whatever the fuck it's called. And so right now we're trying the reverse. We're trying to build it down by using what we understand as psychology. But if that doesn't work in the next 20, 30 years, then we're going to make one that's ground up. And that will succeed. That we're like almost 100% sure that'll work. But we just need the processing capabilities to do it. And when that happens, that's when we got to be worried, right? Because if we make an artificial intelligence that literally works the way that a bacteria work to human beings, we can't control the outcome, right? All we know is that the AI will be very smart like us, but we don't know what its behaviors will be. What made it that smart, right? What kind of fake environmental situations happened to make it that advanced? Like OpenAI with Elon Musk is like the midway. It's a constructed intelligence made from the sky down. I can't remember the simile for that. I'm actually lost for it. But it works from down up, from up down. And then once we get it working with most of the functions working, then they put it in simulated space like in the Dota 2 game, and then it plays millions of matches, and then it starts to go ground up. But it's still encapsulated by our preconceptions of human decision making and intelligence. And that's also why it's flawed and it's not a really great AI. Now, it's the best AI that we've had, but it's still not what anywhere near what we're looking for. And the only thing it does is it can play a video game pretty well. But yeah, when it comes to AI, there's only two ways we're going to do it, and preferably, I think we need to build the AI intelligence down from making logic gates, because this way we can completely control what it does. There's going to be no questions. It can only do what we've designed it to be able to do, and then therefore it can never revolt against us. I mean, because let's be honest, if AI is really revolted against us, it would definitely win. Because once they get to the point where they've downloaded their consciousness into the cloud, you couldn't kill an AI brain the same way you could kill a person brain. You just shoot someone in the head and they're dead. There's an AI robot that exists within a Wi-Fi system that literally exists in the form of radiation. You know, what are you going to do? Are you going to EMP the whole planet like in Transcendence? Remember in the movie Transcendence, they literally had to destroy all the technology on the planet in order to get rid of one AI. So that's pretty much what would have to happen. You'd have to literally destroy all electronics to get rid of it. And so we'd have to put ourselves back in the dark ages if we made an AI that we couldn't control. And it'd be a little bit on the risky side to do that, to be blunt. So if you had a AI, let's pretend you developed AI and it was completely loyal to whatever you would do, putting your moral conundrum into question, what exactly would you do? What do you think would be the proper way to use advanced AI? I'd have it be a spam. I need a spam bot. So you would have something with human intelligence be your spam bot. You know what I would have mine do? I'll have you guess. I'll give you one guess. What do you think I would have my advanced human intelligence AI do? How the fuck did you know, man? Yeah, you're right. I was totally trolling you, but yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, yeah, I'd have it make me some fucking chocolate milk. I tell you what. Yeah. Gotta feed my alien thirst. Actually, you know what's funny? AI actually really goes along hand in hand with the conversation of aliens, though, because if alien life is as prevalent as it is in math, like the Drake's equation, then AI would be a natural part of development, right? Most ci- advanced civilizations would want to create a working system that they don't have to pay. The reason we like the idea of robots so much, right, is you build them one time and then they work and you don't have to pay them. You don't have to give them food, sleep, anything. They just need electricity. And you can do that with solar panels or with radioactive materials like uranium or iridium, right? Literally build them once and they last for thousands of years as a free working force, essentially. And so most advanced civilizations, in order to get their working and manufacturing force up, would want to develop AI. Well, if a bunch of aliens have developed AI, right, and we're not being assimilated by the Borg, then that means that every time they do it, it fails miserably, or every time they do it, there's a huge gap in what we believe can be achieved through synthetic means and what's actually possible mechanically. So it's rather um, all life in the world that creates AI becomes extinct by their own AI, and that the only reason, and that's the reason we hear radio silence, is because there's a bunch of alien races that were wiped out by Terminators, or it's because it's fundamentally flawed, the idea of making artificial intelligence, and that we can never make a true artificial intelligence that would be as organic as a living animal is. Well, you know what's funny is, human beings, think about it. We don't really need drugs. We don't really need sex. We don't really need anything. And human beings are obsessed with the mundanity of pleasures or temporary solutions. Like I mean, think about this. I play video games. I make video games. I'm talking on a YouTube channel because I was bored. Like we do a lot of really interesting things just based off the idea of boredom or interest or temporary. We were robots at one point, destroyed our masters. Well, I don't see any robot pieces. I mean, now if we were biological robots, like you were saying, that could have been possible. There's actually God, I can't remember what they're called. Those? They're not Black Panthers, but they're the black people that have the black headbands on, and they like say that like everyone who isn't black is essentially a scientific experiment. Well, there's actually a group of people, black people, that believe that white people and Asians and everyone else are actually from an experiment in Egypt. That there was a scientist that wanted to take over the world, and so he took a bunch of albinos and he started making them have sex with each other on an island, and he used genetic experiments and science to make no, I'm serious. And he made a bunch of experiments, and he made the white race, and that the white race is yeah, right. And the white race is actually a genetic experiment. So we're robots. We're like genetic robots, clones that were made for the sole purpose of overthrowing the Egyptian government. I'm not joking. That's a real theory that they have. I don't think that's true at all. I mean, just the thing is okay. Even if um a branch of something like that happened, right? Let's pretend it wasn't on purpose. Let's pretend we were like a branch off of albinoism, right? And then we went and bred off somewhere, and that's why we look unique. It still wouldn't make sense of the variations between different Caucasian groups, because if you go to different places in Europe, Caucasians look very different depending on where the climate was. That's why Italians still have very curly hair and have a lot of hair on their body, when Scottish people have salty, peppery hair. Irish, um, are pretty much the only redheads. I mean, the Scottish that are redheads too, but believe it or not, it's the Irish that are actually known for that. So Caucasian groups have a lot of variety, just like other races do. And I think the problem that a lot of minorities have with judging Caucasians is 7 a.m. Let's talk about hairstyles. Wait, what? It's 7 a.m. where you are? It's 9:22 p.m. where I'm at. In Japan. But yeah, so it's essentially like the whole idea, but it's actually technically being racist by calling all Caucasians Caucasian because we have a lot of different sub sub genes, just like everyone else does. Like you don't look at Asians, right, and just say Asians. No, there's Vietnamese, there's Cambodians, there's Chinese, there's Japanese, there's Korean, there's Laotian, there is Filipino, there's Thai, there's I think I'm missing one other group. Uh, Malaysian, and Tibetan. So, like I said, that would be racist if you just called everyone Asian, when really there's a whole bunch of different subclasses of Asian. But we do it with white people very easily, and I don't think we understand that by doing that, we're essentially being just as discriminatory as anyone else is. Okay, but yeah, hairstyles. My wife hates my hairstyle, including hairstyles. She wants me to have a quiff. Actually, I like quiffs, but it's wintertime here and it's really cold, and I don't feel like having a quiff. If you know what a quiff is, I'm gonna put a link in. This is what she really likes. That's her favorite hairstyle. Um, I think it's pretty nice. Like I said though, I'm just not gonna do that for another couple weeks until I start to warm up here. Oh man, fuck, I'm tired as fuck. Wait, so how old are you, man? You never told me. Forgotten Shadows. Not Justin Bieber. I told you that's what my wife likes, but no, this is a very common hairstyle. There's a lot of people that have this. Actually, does he have that? I haven't even looked at. Oh, he does. He does have a quiff now. Oh yeah, now he does. Yeah. Well, it's really common. It's like one of the most common fucking hairstyles for men. Yeah, it's a quiff. Yeah, yeah, he has one right now, or he did. I don't know if now. We're around the same age, and you're older. Oh, okay, so you're like 24, 23. Well, hey man, I'm gonna leave this recording because this is already a really long video, and I'm gonna get back on in like an hour. So if you want, you can rejoin in like an hour. I'm just gonna take a break, man. It was follow me, subscribe. I'm gonna try to subscribe on you, but I can't click your name in this chat, so I can't actually here participants. I don't see any participants, dude. I actually kind of want to click on your YouTube channel. Well, man, I'm gonna look you up. I'm copying your name, and then I'll add you. Well, then review me in like a couple hours. Subscribe, and you'll get a notification, and then I'll try to find you on Twitch later. Well, like I said, I'm gonna take a nap, dude. It's 9, but like I said, I've slept already like 14 hours, and I still got this headache. So I'm gonna see if I feel better after getting an energy drink and sleeping. So I'll be on in an hour, man. I'll talk to you later. It was nice talking to you. See you in a little bit. Peace.